The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.
Because we're that viral after
Exactly.
a couple of episodes.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. So should we start episode 3? No, episode 0.
Yeah. Should we start the next episode? Just in case they're out of order.
Yeah. Shall we start the episode on this day of the week?
Yeah. Why not? I think that at the end of the last episode, I was saying about talking about the state of developer jobs and other jobs within software development because of AI and the way that they're probably going to change.
Continue.
Sure. So yeah. So from how do we start it? I think that my stance on it is that I think we touched on this quite a bit last time. Is that this AI stuff is not just a fad. I think this is a critical, like, industry changing thing. Maybe even more than industry. You know, it's life changing, and we're currently stuck, or we will very soon be stuck in a position where you've got two distinct camps with AI. There's AI augmented teams, and then there's the non-augmented teams, right? So the non-augmented teams are going to be doing what most developers do day to day now, and what we've done for some of our clients now, what we did sort of 12 months ago, day to day. Those guys and girls would be doing the same thing, right? They'd be cutting code by hand and spending a lot of time spinning their wheels on what it is they're trying to build.
Do you think there's many devs that is still the case?
From my experiences of talking to developers, at least in my local area, which it's not been a wide selection of people. I think it is. I don't think it's in the consciousness of people just yet. And like one of the examples I've got with that was that I was talking to somebody who was asking me about an issue they were having with a project, and
like a code issue.
Yeah, a coding problem, and they didn't know where to start with like sorting it out. And I said, look, I haven't touched that technology in probably, it must have been about 8 years, 9 years. So I couldn't straight away off the top of my head go, oh, it's this. Yeah. I said, but I think it's X, Y, and Z, just as a random stab in the dark. But I then said to him, have you tried putting it into an LLM? Just copy the error you're getting and stick it in ChatGPT, see what that says. I said, or something better, using agent-based LLM like Claude Code. So just give it to that. And they said, oh, well, I don't have an account for that. I was like, there's a free version. I said, it's not as good as the paid versions, but it'll do the job. And he said, oh, yeah, sure. I haven't thought about that. I'll go away and do it. I then spoke to him like 4 weeks later at the next event I went to and saw him. And he was like, can't believe it. I've spent hours looking at this issue, not been able to understand what it was or how to fix it. I Googled it, couldn't get anything. Other search engines are available. But he said that like Claude Code fixed it within seconds. He went, oh, it's this, and sorted it. And got it to explain what the problem was, why it was a problem, and how it made the fix. So like, and this guy is a seasoned developer, shall we say? You know, he's been in the industry as long, if not longer, than we have, and it's just not something that had come to mind for him. And there was other people involved in the conversation that were throwing out possible ways to solutionize the problem, and not one of them said, "Have you asked the AI agents about the problem?" We had a recent meetup where we talked exclusively about AI, and people were still like, there's developers from all walks of life, all different technologies, not just line of business developers, all sorts of different people there, startups, enterprise, education, all that sort of thing. And most of them still thought it was very much jumped up predictive text. So a little bit like it was maybe 12 months ago, where like you go to somewhere like Claude and you'd ask it and it'd go, I don't know. And it wasn't great. And then ChatGPT came along and that was better. But yeah, they're just not I think they're not giving it the time of day, and they're just
They tried it earlier and didn't.
yeah, yeah, and
you
like
see the incremental improvements.
yeah, I did that right. I said then about Claude being awful on the website the first time that I used it. You know, one of my tests for an LLM to see if it's got a good breadth of knowledge is I ask it who the cynical developer is. If it doesn't come back with me, I just dismiss it and never use it again. Right? It's not good enough.
It's so humble.
Yeah, yeah. But like everything I asked Claude through its web interface originally, it just go, oh, I don't know, I can't answer that, I can't help you with that. GPT was better. It had answers to a lot of the questions. So I then was like, oh well, we'll use chat for stuff instead. And then a lot of people I say a lot, there's a very close sort of circle of developers that I work with, and we openly discuss a lot of these topics, similar to what we're doing for these recordings. And they kept saying to me, "Have you tried Claude Code? Have you tried Claude Code?" And I was like, "Why waste my time? Like through the website, it was awful. Like it's going to be able to like help me in any sort of technical way." And they went on for weeks, maybe even months, to be fair, banging on about it. And I was like, "Do you know what? I'll give it a go." Um, and I think it started out, rewind it a little bit. I think it started out with Cursor, right? So I downloaded Cursor, used Cursor, and was like, wow, this is great. Paid for Cursor for 12 months because I was like, this is a no-brainer. This is something I can play with and do a lot of stuff with in Cursor. We were carried on the discussion that day. They went, oh yeah, try Claude Code as well. I was like, okay, so I installed that, and Claude Code was even better. And the fact that I'm a JetBrains fanboy and I do all my stuff in the JetBrains IDEs, that there's a Claude Code plugin, so you get it still in the terminal. It just loads a terminal up and can see the context from the IDE, and that was even better to the point where I haven't opened Cursor since. I should have got it on a monthly basis, right? So I could have cancelled it, but you know, hindsight being 2020 and all that. So like I dismissed it, and I like to think that I kind of do some early adoption with these technologies and really give them a run through, see what they can do, and I arrogantly, ignorantly, whichever words you want to put there, just dismissed it. So I think that for people that don't actively experiment with stuff, I think it's very easy for that to fly under the radar. Because I play with a lot of different technologies, right? I work in .NET and Python. I do front end, back end, server stuff, desktop application, all that sort of thing. And I'll play with different technologies. A new framework will come out. I'll go and build a platform or something in that, and then I speak to other developers, and they don't do that. They don't pay attention to what's new and what's coming out and how things are going to change. So I think it's just that being in their own little bubble. They're like, I get my day to day done, and I'm happy with what I'm doing, and they just don't pay any attention to it. And I guess that like the majority of exposure to AI for the general public is videos and images on social media, right? If you go on Twitter or X as it's now called, you look at any thread, they're just inundated with AI stuff. Um, you know, 100 like nearly every post that I look at, you can guarantee there's somebody that's put at Grok, put me in a bikini or something like that on it. And I think that that's people's general understanding of, well, that's what AI does, or I can get it to generate some written content, but they don't think about it solving problems, or being of any real substance and use. Because like those that complain are the people that get heard, right? It's like with writing reviews. People very rarely write a good review, but they'll write a bad review. And I think that sort of like feeds into what I was saying last time about the term AI slop, and that's all it's seen as. Because I've had heated debates with people about the quality of the output from the likes of Claude Code, and they've just said, "Oh, it's terrible." And when you dig into it, and like, have you actually used it? Have you tried building anything with it? No, no. I've downloaded it. I put a couple of prompts into it, and what it built was crap. But it's kind of a trash in, trash out system, right? If you don't learn to curate it properly, then you're gonna not get the benefits of it. And also think you've got to think about the terms that you're using as well. On because it's crazy. It's taken human speech and converting it into logical results. And depending on where you are in the world, you could say that thing a million different ways in 1,000 different languages. So like you've got to give it some leeway sometimes when it doesn't get it quite right, because it's done something no human can do, right?
Yeah, I think with most of these things, you forget how a lot of this stuff is a job for people, and there is no desire to push the boundaries of their own ability, right? They just don't think there's any escaping it now. I think maybe it'll just take a couple more years to fill through the zeitgeist a bit more. And I can see the balance, because you're right. Like we've got in our apartment, we've got two balconies, and we get this like really crazy side wind. So I want like a doorstop, but I try and put like a weight behind it, and there has to be like 10 kilos to not move the door, and then it bangs. And then I was like, I'll put weight in front of it, and there's all these problems. I was like, right, can I just design a doorstop? Basically, what I want is I want a doorstop that will wrap around the door, so it's got like a piece on each side, and then the back, and then because it'll be heavy, like rope, and then a hoop on the top of the rope so it can hook like around the handle. So basically, I can just like lift it up, put the door where I want, lift it up, place it down. Maybe it's like 7 to 10 kilos. It could be concrete, it could be 3D printed plastic, like I can fill with sand. I have a lot of sand, and then I can just lift the rope up to move it out of the way. And I was like, I just can't find this thing anywhere. I was like, why wouldn't? Surely other people have this problem. Anyway, so then I go on to like, Nano Banana from Google or ChatGPT for images, and like, I'll show you. Like, this is what it ends up making. So this is like U-shape doorstop rope handle, which is completely correct by its terminology. So I can understand like if people are, if they're seeing things like this, you can see how you have to really iterate. So you have to say things like, no, the rope, is at the top and hooks or handle.
Spelled hooks wrong.
The hooks, and handle, and the weight itself is I guess. Something like that. But I can see how, like, you know, you have to iterate, but also, like, when it comes to like more media generation, it's slower, right? So you don't get that instant kind of feedback cycle anymore. And I can see how people would just give up after maybe like 2 or 3 attempts. But the reality is, you're designing potentially a new product, right? And it's you need a bit of patience through that flow.
Yeah. And I was saying there about different languages and stuff. There was a couple of spelling mistakes in what you wrote, but it's still probably going to understand it and work out what it is you meant, right?
To be fair, it's always all my thing is spelling mistakes. That's all it is. I think I need my own model that can determine. See, like, what door handle is that low? You know,
it's like the borrower's door handle. Yeah,
it's like, so then you have to iterate and iterate and iterate, right? And I just think people just don't have that patience to do it. Be it something funny like this, or be it code.
Yeah. But like that stands to my point, is that like it's done that off of a couple of sentences, whereas I think if you were to like you want it to do exactly what you want, you need a bigger prompt, more details. It's a U shape, but the U shape hooks around the end of the door to stop it from moving from side to side. The rope comes up from the base to tie around the handle, or there's a hook on the handle or something like that. And then one thing I've had it do when I've been trying to get it to build something for me or design something is like take a piece of paper and a pencil. I know that this is a technology podcast, and that's a bit of old technology. Sketch out what you want, and then go, no, like this, and then it interprets what you've drawn, and like it's not a massive leap and a lot of work to make those extra long prompts, but
or you're hacking it, right? You're kind of like...
yeah. But people won't do that. They're just like have a quick go and go, no, this is terrible, and never use it. A little bit like I did, or I was explaining I did with Claude originally, right? Threw a couple of prompts at it, and obviously, like back when I first looked at Claude, my prompting wasn't as refined as it is now, and that's probably overselling it a little bit as well.
Right. Drawing skills are amazing. To be fair, if it can figure out what this is, that in itself is a skill.
Can we do spot the AI, spot the real one?
We've definitely hit the tipping point where the AI is better than the human.
Yeah.
Based on
it's an interesting use, right? Concept design, concept art, using this rather than painting it.
Oh, but we're getting closer.
Yeah. So that wooden block's not too far off.
No, okay.
That concrete one, I think the Umbraco community might want that. It looks like their logo.
But I think that I think the interesting thing, and again, I obviously will get back to the role thing, but I think the interesting thing with this is like this is also changing the role. Normally you try and look for this type of thing in the market. You can't find it unless you find it like just on random chance. So you just dismiss it, and you just be annoyed, and you'd have to figure out something alternative or not do it at all. but we're moving now to a place where like you can iterate and iterate and iterate, and because of like 3D printers in particular, you could probably find someone who then could make this thing. You know, obviously
Yeah.
not like what has been created here, but I think you're right. I think if I actually drew this and sketched it, or maybe went and took a picture of my door and then drew it around the door frame or something, that then actually it would probably work. And it's that type of kind of innovation, because then you go from nothing to a product to like a prototype in the way of 3D printing it, which may be enough if you just need two of them. But then actually, if we live in an apartment complex and there's like hundreds of properties, and everyone must have the same problem. I don't know how else they're solving it, unless they have like two heavyweights, and you're kind of like, oh, actually, there's something here, right? And then it just, you then get into a supply chain type of thing. Well,
Yeah.
not to jump ahead with the new doorstop business.
Yeah. I've done a better drawing for you, labeled it, put that into it while we
okay.
while we carry on, and when we'll circle back to it and see what it's built. But yeah, the thing I wanted to talk about was the actual changing in roles and things, and I think that one of the big parts of development I see changing quite rapidly is cutting code, right? Typing on the keyboard is the easy bit.
Correct.
Anybody can do it, yeah, right?
Yeah.
We all have different proficiencies at typing on that keyboard, but it's not the issue isn't the speed at which we type. It's the understanding of the problem and how to fix the problem with the correct logic. And I think that with the birth and adoption of Agile, everything has gone from being full specs that we got for waterfall, and then we'd spend like 5-6 years building the thing, to the specs to the nth degree. People are now given beer mat descriptions. Build me a thing that does a thing in a certain way. And you're like, okay. And then there's probably back and forth between the developer and the project owner, or the product owner and the project manager, and all of that back and forth for days or weeks as this evolves. And I think that it's that part that people think that's agile.
Yeah.
And I think that with the AI stuff, you've got spec driven development, where you actually clearly define what it is you're going to build. And this isn't like, I want you to build me this massive platform and here's everything, and then go away and build it. This is, I'm building a platform, I need a feature that does this. And you do one small aspect of it, but you define it, and you can sit down in that one session with your product owner and your project manager, and you thrash that out, go, right, this is what we want to build. You then give that to the AI to then build in whichever way, shape or form. And it builds it to that specification. And then you deliver that, and your end client, whoever that may be, internal, external, looks and go, yes, that's great. Let's move on to the next part of that feature, the next part, and that's the iteration of it. And I think that we're still going to need to code for now to understand what code's being produced. But we're going to spend less time actually coding, more time getting a good description of what it is that we're going to build, and probably, in my opinion, doing agile properly. Right, your ticket, your description's going to need use cases, user stories, acceptance criteria, rules about how it's going to be written. So all of those like coding standards that you've got as a company, but no one ever implements and no one ever reads. They've got to be there.
Documentation will actually be a value.
Yeah, and I think that for how boring this might sound as the future development, we're going to be more document driven developers more than anything else. And I think that the shift between like product manager and developer is going to change. Whereas like the project manager needs to know how to manage a project, right? They need to know how to describe very loosely the feature, and then developers got to understand how to implement it. And I think that sometimes people butt heads at that point because there's a lack of understanding, a lack of communication between the technical and the non-technical. And I think that the developer role is going to become more of a technical project manager, or whatever term you use, because as a developer, you're going to be helping write the tickets, not just sitting there going, oh, I think this is a large t-shirt size, or I think this is 14 points, or whatever number from a Fibonacci sequence you want to pick. We're going to be taking all that experience, all that knowledge, creating the ticket. And at the moment, it's probably a case of copy and pasting what was in the ticket into whatever LLM you're using. But in the future, that could even be just tell the LLM what Jira ticket number it is that you're working on, or Trello ticket. It goes and has a look, looks at all the attachments that are on there, goes and looks at all the link tickets and goes, yes, I know what to do. I've got this set of rules that says this is how we write our code. I've got these use cases and all that sort of stuff, and goes and builds it based on that. And then we as developers then, we're probably like the first level of a pull request, a code review. So it does it. We do some initial testing. We look through the code and go, yeah, this looks fine. This seems to work. Go through balance and checks, and then it goes to QA. So not only will that process be sped up in the fact that the AI's written that feature, you've also done some testing, which if you tell me that you've ever written a function and tested it properly the first time all the way through before it goes to QA, you're probably lying to yourself. We've all been there where we've written it and gone, it works how I think it should work. We'll just ship it. Yeah. So I think that, it's only going to get better in that way, and speed things up. And it's not replacing the developer, it's augmenting their skill set. And I think it's just slightly changing the dynamic, right? We had this with the likes of frameworks that came in. Like 20 years ago, we had the company I worked at, we had a templating engine called Codesmith. And we'd spent months defining how our back end worked. And then the lead developer was like, I've got this thing called Codesmith. And you gave it the models, and it went and it built out all your repository patterns. And it's like, oh, well, you've just saved us like weeks worth of development. Like, that was accepted eventually of, yeah, that's fine, we're allowed to do that. And I think
it's like T4 templates type of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. I think T4 were coming out around that sort of time as well. And it took a while for that to be accepted. It got accepted, and it saved us weeks worth of stuff. And it's where we are now with AI, is that some of us that are using that technology are going great, and we're getting benefits from it. And it's going to take a little bit of time for people to see those benefits. And like, yeah, okay, granted, I don't use Codesmith anymore, but I did use it for a long time, even on my own stuff. And the reason that you don't use Codesmith on that now, why is that? Oh, because there's other frameworks now that are even better, that you make your POCOs, or any other sort of word you want to call them, but your entities, your objects, and you tell the framework, this is where my database is, this is my objects, you deal with it, right?
It's a spec though, right? For all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. Yeah. You're basically saying like, this is the thing I potentially want to put in this data store, and the spec environment of now is just it's language rather than lightweight code is the difference.
Yeah.
I think like the point you said, like around that agile aspect, but I do think eventually we move into things like spec kit and stuff is great for that feature thing, but a product is just a load of features. So there's no reason why, if your spec is detailed enough, why you couldn't build the whole thing, even from a greenfield, like starting from Go. You probably need the experience of knowing, like, the gotchas of the model, and but then the idea of subagents that focus on security and focus on CI/CD and best practices and accessibility and all this stuff. It's how do you then go from that logic of typically a developer had to hold a lot of that stuff in their head, or they didn't do it, or if the project was worthy enough, they bring in a specialist. Like how many times have people pen tested the system, and then they finish and go, right, it's okay today, because you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If something's going to update, it's a point in time test. And I wonder, to your point, like, yes, I think there's definitely a merge between developer and like program project manager, or BA, or like that type of business requirements gatherer, and like liaison / executor. It is from a tester, a tester, the testers still exist. Do security companies still exist because of that? Do quality control, like all these different things? Sorry, accessibility. All these different things that either didn't happen or would happen by an external kind of entity. Front end, back end, like is another one. Is the skill set as a developer now, like in an ideal scenario, do you just remove the developer completely and everyone else gains developer knowledge? Or does the developer occupy the other roles? Because I guarantee if you have a developer that's really good, they are not traditionally good at documentation.
Yeah. I think like teaching non-technical people to write software or understand the software is difficult. So I think that you still need a certain, at this current point in time, right? You need somebody that has the correct mindset and understanding to go and be able to read code. Now, I mentioned before, like
does the PM then go?
I think so. I think that's the role that changes dramatically or disappears. Because like I was saying earlier that I work in multiple different languages, but there are thousands of languages out there. I know that I was looking at a project a few years ago, and it was a C++ project that I was looking at, and I was looking at it for some context for a .NET project that I was writing. I don't know C++. I couldn't write a program from scratch in C++ and make it work. But what I was able to do was to read through the code in GitHub, which is where it was hosted, and understand what it was doing, because I have that understanding of syntax, and that, yes, it's different from all the other languages maybe that I'm looking at. It shares some similarities in structure to C#, so that helps. But if you were to sit down a non-programmer to look at any of that code, they wouldn't even know where to start to comprehend what that code's doing, or what its purpose is. So I still think you need that, but that's only because right now it matters still what programming language you write it in.
Yeah, or what infrastructure you deploy it to, or we're still not there on the. But then again, equally, like again, most developers I've know then can't talk to the business side.
Yeah.
So it's either like, do you teach the non-technical person technical skills, or do you give the developer a personality? Like it's like, unfortunately, a lot of developers are quite introverted. They're quite kind of, keep me away from the clients. I want to be in the back room, and it's a cliche, and I imagine people would disagree. On the whole, like, that is the case. And then so where does that kind of shift happen? And again, I don't really know the answer to this, because I look at people I work with or have worked with, and you go, some people will prototype and they'll really engage in the power tools, and then they have to run like a terminal command, and then everything goes out the water. And then you have developers who are deploying stuff and they're building this stuff and it's all amazing and they've built something in like hours instead of weeks. And they go, cool, can you demo this to the client? And they're like,
Yeah.
so if you go, okay, well, actually, we still need the product manager or the client, the account manager, and we still need the developer. But now they're doing a tenth of the work. So who's paying? Who then is paying for this? Are they working less time? Are they getting paid more? Like, it opens up, a lot of, like you said, it's not just a case of change of role, right? It's a whole change of the paradigm of which, does the company then go after 10 times more amount of work?
Yeah. And I think that even though we're trying not to be biased in one way or another, I think that you can't help but be biased, right? Yeah. And I don't mean that AI good, non-AI bad. It's what I'm talking about is the progress that we're seeing. I think that maybe we're in a unique position isn't quite the right word, because in the vast number of developers out there, there's probably millions of developers that actually think, work, and everything the way that we do. And we've got no issue with talking to the client, talking to internal people, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, star in it, be outside with a placard advertising the thing. We kind of do all of the bits. So like, I think maybe it's easier for us to look at this from a 10,000 foot overview and going, right, all of these things that I can do, I can now do 10, 20 times better. Whereas somebody that only does a very, very thin piece of it, say they're a CSS expert, right? They just do CSS. They don't engage with clients. They don't do anything else. They just do CSS. Probably looks and go, oh, maybe I can do a bit of CSS a little bit better. And then they try that and go, yeah, I could have done that anyway. And then write it off. Maybe it's a mindset thing, and maybe that's going to be the issue.
It's going to do it. It's going to do all of it, right? So, or
Yeah.
like 90%. So if you are the person who just does CSS, what do you then do now? Like, what's the shout? What's the advice? Because I look at it and I'm like, you have to learn how to understand business requirements, or you have to pursue something you're currently passionate about yourself, because you can now do all the other stuff. But as I get repeatedly told, not everyone has that mindset.
Yeah, like I'm not taking a dump on anybody that is a one-trick pony. They just do that one thing. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think that one thing just needs to become a broader brushstroke, because we're all going to be able to do parts of it, parts of the process. And like one discussion I had
because the flip of that also is like there's so much time is spent of developers building prototypes and demos. Equally, that is gone because the business size will be able to do that, in minutes.
Like I had a conversation with one person that they said, AI can't do what I do. I work at such a low level in an operating system. It just can't do that. And I was like, well, why can't it do that? It's like, well, it's not very well documented, and you've just got to know through experience. And I said, well, how did you get that experience? He went, well, you've got to read through the code, and there's comments in the code and stuff. And I was like, code and comments in the code is documentation. If you were able to infer what that code did from reading the code and looking at the comments, so can the AI. Oh no, it won't be able to do it. I'm sure it would. I'm sure if you pointed it at any documentation, it read and understood the documentation, because it has that fundamental understanding of different languages.
Yeah. It can take it.
It can infer it, right?
Yeah.
And there is that argument that these models, they're not really thinking; they're just regurgitating other information from other people. And then my counter to that is
Stack Overflow.
Well, but isn't that how we all learn? Learn is reading something and retaining it and then applying it with context, right? And that's all these LLMs are doing, especially with some of them now that are talking to themselves, right? ChatGPT, you give it one thing, it has a think about it, it's changed recently, but it would just do that one thing and go, there you go, there's my thought on it, and didn't really sort of discuss it with itself. Whereas one of the things that blew me away with Claude Code was that you could give it a task to do and it go, oh yeah, go away, and you could see it processing it, it'd start to do something, and it go, oh, actually, I've just reviewed that, that's not quite right. Let me just go and read the documentation. It Googled it, or its search engine of choice, and went, oh, the API has updated, or there's a new version. I need to do it this way. This way's more efficient, and it would do that. And it would have a back and forth between itself, self-regulating, self-review, and then go, there we go, we've done it. And you go, cool. That's not to say it was right. You then need to go and check it, but it is, for all intents and purposes, thinking for itself, but in a very niche sandbox. It's not thinking about the world and life and the meaning of it. Yeah, it's just thinking about that one problem, which in itself has issues, right? Maybe it's not thinking about the implications of changing this function compared to the rest of the system, but you can tell it to do that. It's
and I've had it as well. Where like you can see it doing something, and you're like, oh, it's going to go down this route, but you just give it a nudge, and you just say, look, actually,
I don't know if you've seen it. There's a video of making a peanut butter and jelly or jam sandwich, and the developer tells the person how to do it, and they get it all, like the elements are there, but they're not quite in the right order. They're not quite descriptive enough to build the sandwich how it should be. And that is probably one of the best analogies for prompt writing that there is. Because if you just said, "Oh, go make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich," and it didn't have any context around it, and you went, "Oh, take some bread, put some peanut butter on it, put some jam on it, and put that together," is it going to look like a sandwich? Where's the peanut butter going to be? Where's the jam going to be?
Yeah, to be fair, I'd be asking why you're putting jelly on a sandwich, but
if you haven't tried it, you haven't lived. Peanut butter and Nutella is even better.
Peanut butter and actual jelly, because
well, not jelly, but jam.
No, we put jelly on to see. That's a joke. That's funny. But yeah, no, you're right. I guess it's that thing where like, so maybe the answer to like the role question then is like it's up for grabs, right? It's like there is an evolution now, there is a change, and people kind of have a choice. If you're in the project manager business side, you're going to have to, become a little bit more technical. Does that mean you have to code, or maybe a bit more patient with the systems to, see them more as they're going to have to do the heavy work. So you're going to have to prompt and reprompt and learn and stuff. And if you're technical, then, you need to engage with the business more. You're going to have to practice presentations. You're going to have to improve documentation, spec writing, and again, for the same for testing. And then I guess it then becomes, is the, from a business, do you want to, and I said this to a lot of people, and I always get a weird look, which is like, when I do a lot of like AI training things and people will come and say, we want everyone to use AI. And I'm like, cool. I was like, you've got two choices. Which one are you picking? By the end of this, in a year's time, you will be able to sack 80% of your staff, or you need to go after 5 times more work.
Yeah.
Or pay, pay more because the more done for the work. And people just kind of laugh it off, and I think but I think it is a reality. I think we're getting very close to that kind of inflection point with this stuff.
Yeah, and it's the nature of this industry, right? I've worked in a lot of businesses and with a lot of businesses where I've come in and built a system to fix a particular problem for that company, and I've released that piece of software, and I've seen whole departments disappear overnight. And depending on how good the company is, they either reallocate, retrain, or they sack those staff, right? My brother worked for a local newspaper as a designer, They had a whole team doing the housing section of the paper with all the sales for the houses. And the team spent every day, all day, every week, setting the photos and the text. My brother set up a template that did all of those based off the files that were given to the system, and it would do it in seconds. And overnight, that department got reallocated to other things. I introduced the ability for customers, and this is really, really basic, right, to download their invoices in their customer portal for a client. Their internal team had said, sorry, their internal team had said they couldn't do it because the CVs were in a third-party system. I went and looked at that third-party system, saw it was using SQL, had a look at the records, could see where the PDFs lived, married up the records from their CRM system to their actual system, set up a secure gateway, and put these invoices into the portal. Took me less than a day to do. Within 3 days, we had it deployed, and it reduced the calls into the call center by 94%. That company reallocated and retrained those staff. Didn't sack them. It could have done, right? That's a massive cost saving. The reality of sacking those people is a humanitarian side of it. Do you want to sack them? Or make them redundant, whatever term you want to use. But yeah, they reallocated them, and they got back to doing what really they should have been doing. The same company, I did some automation for them for requesting certain documentation, and there was a lot of pushback going, well, this is what I do. This is my day job. You've taken that away from me. And in reality, their day job wasn't requesting that documentation. There was other stuff they were supposed to be doing, but they only got to do that 2 or 3% of the day. Whereas now they could do that like 100% of the day because they didn't need to do that other bit. They clicked a button and off it went and handled it for them. And this is just another evolution of that. And unfortunately, it's pointing at the developers and going, oh, it's now you. But I've also worked with companies where there's a big team working on a product. That product becomes finished enough. They then go, well, we don't need everybody now. So they downsize the team because the product does what it needs to do. They're not planning on putting anything else on it. Maybe those people go off and work on another project. Maybe, you're a contractor and that's the end of the project. Though that iteration is just going to be quicker at getting to the end of the project. So,
there is hope then.
I think so.
If you act right, like I think that's the thing is that people need to experiment with this stuff. They need to play with it, and then actually use it. Actually, maybe we're beyond play. Majority of people still need to play with it, but I think you have to move a bit quicker because people are actively using it now, and that's important.
Yeah, and I think like within the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a big change and stuff's going to actually impact the industry, but it's not going to be critical in that time frame because enterprise moves slow, right? And there's still old technologies there that have been in place for 30 years that are still being maintained and worked on. So that's not gonna change. So
well, we have progress on the doorstop, if nothing else, from your image.
Right. Okay.
Which is cool. Like we're getting there, and then I just did some iterations. This is as close as I think I'm going to get for this version. I think I need to create an image, but that's kind of what I want. I just want it thicker on the other side as well. Maybe some foam.
So did you give it the my sketch?
Yeah.
To get to that.
Yeah. It said thank you. Please tell the 6-year-old that they did a good job.
Cool. Good stuff. I can put my crayons away now.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think yeah, like you said, it's how how willing are people going to be to adapt, with this stuff and experiment and then reevaluate, not be uncomfortable in reevaluating what their role is in the company. And then from the company's point of view, it's down to the company also to grow up a bit and be like, right, actually, we've been hiring people for a skill, like, software developers are renowned for it, which is, they put a job out and it's not like we want a developer who can solve this problem. It's, we want a developer with 4 years experience and this technology of this stack and da-da-da, and it's very kind of very down the line.
It's yeah. I think that yeah, things are going to change. It's maybe not complete doom and gloom, but it's a big change, right? It's a big shift in the paradigm,
Yeah.
which we probably haven't seen for a long while. So yeah, get out there and experiment, build something, come up with a side project, get the AI to build it.
Doorstops.
Yeah, maybe not doorstops, because unless you've got a 3D printer or manufacturing capabilities at home, that's
Yeah, but you can find
the AI is
something.
not
I
going
think
to.
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But the AI can then help you shortlist companies nearby you that potentially can do it. They can turn it into a CAD file. They can turn it into like different things. It's again, I think it comes back to like, not to drag the point on, but like I just think so many people do stuff they're not passionate about and they don't really care. And I get it. We've chatted about this before. A lot of people just have to take a job and they have to provide for their families. Completely understandable. But there's 24 hours in the day. Most people work 8 to 12 hours a day. There's still time to follow a passion, and then maybe at some point there can be an inflection point on, financial returns versus the job. But if this enables people to just like, imagine if you have an idea like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you're like, I want to build an app to do something. It probably costs you like 50 grand minimum, like to like really build a solution.
Yeah.
Let's say 20. So it just completely takes out the window, right? Now you can have a demo for basically free because you can use one of these free tools. And then if you want to build it, you pay 20 quid a month for like something like Claude. You could potentially do like, I forget the service, the ones where you can like connect to a developer for an hour and chat to them type of thing. Get them to review the code, do like 5 or 6 of them, and you potentially would have something that kind of works for less than $100. Like that shift between the two is so dramatic and so potentially enabling and empowering if people take the opportunity.
Yeah. And the fact that you said about passion there, that triggered what I was gonna say before. Writing software is a creative pursuit at the moment, right? And we all chase the endorphins when we get a problem fixed and we release something and it's like, yeah, I got it working. We've all sat there and the bug that we've just been banging our head against the wall for 4 hours is fixed. We're like, yeah, come on, this is fantastic. You still get those highs with the AI stuff because you get that quick return. You can see something like, oh yeah, this is great. This is doing what I want, and you still get those endorphins, and you're still having that creative sort of license. The difference is that you've got a little friend there that's helping you to achieve that a lot better, a lot faster.
Chat to them about it. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, and and if you want to be a sycophant about your own capabilities, Claude's ideal for you with the, oh yeah, what a great catch. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You are amazing. That it comes back with every little thing you ever say to it, which irritates me to no end. Just get on with it. Stop blowing smoke up my ass.
Cool. On that.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up for this episode.
Yeah, that's a long one, but an interesting one. Okay, next time we'll talk about something to do with AI.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.